I love how black people are just sitting still and being quiet while all this turmoil is going on. I love the way we just get in our rest. We are protesting, but doing so silently because we don't give a fuck.
You know, I'm about to go to a pregame because I'm going to a concert tonight, but I just want to get on here and say some things. The fact that white people have the fucking audacity to comment, to have any type of thoughts on how a black person shows up in this country in the year 2025 in regards to protesting is fucking stupid. Waking up and living a full life in this country and trying not to let it get you down as a black person in America is protest enough for me. Also, I voted for Kamala in November, so I did my part. The rest of y'all sat around, made excuses, and let your racism get us here. So if we as a collective choose that we don't want to be involved, shut the fuck up.
Welcome back to the channel. If you're watching this right now, you probably feel just like me, just another number. Today, we're going to talk about the new black protest. And what's the new black protest? Sitting the fuck down. Now, at this point, a lot of you may have already been paying attention to what's been going on social media, or the lack of transparency via corporate media about them not showing the protest that took place April 5th, last Saturday. And a lot of people have been noticing, and we knew ahead of time as black folks, we weren't going to show up. And a lot of people are talking about it now. Now, you know, the white people who have been paying attention to black folks, they already knew this to be. As a matter of fact, a lot of them were even encouraging us to stay home because they understand it's about our safety. See, they understand. But a lot of them, as you heard the two people I played prior as the intro to the video, people have the audacity, or the caucasity, to want to criticize or say something about why black people are not showing up to these events, or why we're not protesting, why we're sitting out. And it's almost like we as black folks came together collectively on November 5th, or November 6th, I should say, when we found out that Kamala didn't win, that they put the racist guy back in charge. It's like we all collectively just took a breath and kind of understood the assignment, as they say. And we say, okay, we did our part. We tried. We're going to sit back. We're going to hold back. We're not holding the line no more because we tried. We tried to warn you. You're not listening to us. So you know what? That's where it is. Fuck around and find out. It's probably around prior to that, but this is when it's really going to sink in now. Y'all all are going to really have to find out now, which you all are. And so a lot of what was going on at that protest, watching videos, because I wasn't there, people are going and protesting about, hey, you're destroying the stock market, you're doing all of this, you're basically, you're just causing hell, you're causing havoc, you're destroying America's allies. You guys want to go back to this policy that they had in the United States about basically just being by ourselves, being only inclusive to Americans. And you know what I mean by Americans. Basically isolationist, that's the term I'm looking for. They want to take America back to being an isolationist country. That didn't necessarily benefit America. You see, I'm no fan of America being the world's police, but you gotta admit, it could be a lot worse if we weren't out there trying to stop the preconceived or so-called bad guys. I'm not gonna mix a bunch of geopolitical stuff into this because that's my other wheelhouse, but the point being, America is a lot safer when we have allies. This is a fact. We are stronger together. The shit that black folks have been trying to preach forever And today, white people, a lot of them, still don't seem to understand that point. We are stronger when we are together. Okay? It's just like a fight. If it's 40 of them and one of you, who do you think is going to win that fight? So I don't understand this isolationist attitude, this mindset. We literally live in a globalized economy. We don't make shit in the United States no more. We literally depend on the world. So how could you possibly be isolationist? How can you be isolationist if you depend on the world? Okay, granted. I keep going back into geopolitical territory. I got to bring it back. So, to bring it back to why black people sat the fuck down and we didn't protest, we sat the fuck down and didn't protest because you all didn't vote for Kamala. You all haven't been listening to us for decades about the injustices that we've been facing in this country. Not just black folks. We fought for everybody. And now we decide to sit down. And now some of you are getting attitudes. We're sitting down because we don't want to give your president any type of ammunition to institute martial law. Don't think that he won't do it. Don't think it's above him. Look at everything he's already done. So, before I go any further and get into that, I want to get into the history of black protest. I want to get into the history of black people protesting in this country because it's going to add a lot of clarity and a lot of value here to why now we finally decide to say, we're not doing shit. We're sitting down. It's your fucking turn. So let's get into the history. The early resistance during slavery, 17th to 19th centuries. Let's talk about the slave rebellions. Enslaved Africans resisted their bondage through acts of defiance, including work slowdowns, sabotage, running away, and armed revolts. Notable examples include the Stono Rebellion, 1739, Gabriel Prosser's Rebellion, 1800, Denmark Vesey's, am I saying that right? Denmark Vesey's Plot, 1822, and Nat Turner's Rebellion of 1831. So that's like, at least in this country, and no, I won't even say in this country because a lot of people, a lot of our ancestors decided to choose the sea. A lot of them refused. There are probably many untold stories about how many people fought back on those ships. And a lot of them decided, you know what? I'll choose the sea versus going to be enslaved and in bondage to you. The abolitionist movement. Free black people played a crucial role in the abolitionist movement, advocating for the end of slavery through speeches, writings, organizing, and assisting the Underground Railroad. Figures like Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, and David Walker were instrumental in this movement. Again, these are historical references for black protest. The fight against Jim Crow and segregation, late 19th and mid 20th centuries. Early civil rights activism. Following the Civil War and the end of slavery, black Americans continued to face systemic racism and discrimination under the Jim Crow laws. Activists like Ida B. Wells Barnett protested against lynching. And W.E.B. Du Bois advocated for political and social equality through the Niagara Movement and the NAACP, founded in 1909. Again, we've been protesting for centuries at this point. Now here's the part of the video that always seems to get overlooked. They just think that anytime we protested, it's just, they always claim and they always make up these lies and spread these rumors online about, oh, they're burning down cities. Look what happened in Portland and Minnesota. And they just attribute everything to violence with black people, which is strange considering the fact that We've never genocided a group of people and took over their land, colonizing them, taking their resources, damn near wiping away their entire identity, damn near wiping them out of existence. But I digress. Nonviolent direct action. The mid-20th century witnessed the rise of the civil rights movement, employing nonviolent direct action as a primary tactic. Montgomery bus boycott, 1955 to 1956, sparked by Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat on the bus to a white passenger. This boycott successfully led to the desegregation of Montgomery's bus system. Sit-in movement, 1960. Beginning in Greensboro, North Carolina, young black activists sat at segregated lunch counters, demanding equal service. This tactic spread rapidly across the South. Now just think about this for a split second. All they did was go in there and sit down to eat and just ask for equal and fair treatment. How was their money not better than anybody else's? They did it peacefully, and they were kicked and spat on and shit thrown at them. But yet, the people with the truly violent history are quick to call another group of people violent. Yeah. Freedom Rides, 1961. Civil rights activists rode interstate buses into the segregated South to challenge the non-enforcement of Supreme Court decisions that ruled segregation of public buses unconstitutional. So even when y'all make your own laws, y'all don't even follow your own laws. Birmingham Campaign, 1963. Protests, marches, and sit-ins in Birmingham, Alabama highlighted the brutal realities of segregation and police violence, garnering national and international attention. Again, violence. Not on our end, though. March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, 1963. A massive demonstration advocating for civil and economic rights for African Americans, where Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. That's the one that always gets the most attention. Selma to Montgomery marches, 1965. Protests for voting rights in Alabama met with violent resistance, which ultimately led to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Let's move on to the next one. The Black Power movement and beyond, mid-1960s, the 1970s. Shift in ideology. While the civil rights movement achieved significant legislative victories, some activists grew frustrated with the slow pace of change and the persistence of systemic inequality. The Black Power movement emerged, advocating for self-determination, Black pride, and, at times, a more confrontational approach to achieving liberation. Urban uprisings, frustration and anger over racial injustice and police brutality led to a series of urban uprisings in the mid to late 1960s, including the Watts riots in 1965, the Newark riots 1967, and the Detroit riots 1967. That one hits a little closer to home. At a certain point, how much can you keep protesting peacefully? All those protesters, those people on the ground, everyone fighting for something better. Because you got to understand, what is a person protesting? You protesting for change. No matter what that change is, you're protesting for change. And if you're so used to getting kicked and hit and spit on and pissed on, it's only a natural reaction that things are not going to be quite so peaceful after a certain amount of time. It's the equivalent of how many times do you have to get hit in the face before you retaliate, in one form or another. That's what people need to understand. Contemporary protests, late 20th century to the present, continued advocacy, Black activists continue to protest against racial discrimination in various forms, including housing, employment, and the criminal justice system. Black Lives Matter movement, 2013 to the present. This decentralized movement emerged in response to the acquittal of George Zimmerman and the killing of Trayvon Martin. It gained significant momentum following the deaths of Michael Brown, Eric Garner, and numerous other black individuals at the hands of law enforcement. Black Lives Matter protests against police brutality and systemic racism, advocating for policy changes and racial justice. So black folks have a history, including now, of still protesting. And the latest protest is us sitting down. So let's talk a little bit more about what was going on during those time periods. You see, people were leading the nonviolent movements. Martin Luther King preached it. Malcolm X had a totally different approach, where a lot of people now more so agree with Malcolm X than Martin Luther King. We understood why he did it. But it's only, let's put it this way. I tend to look through the lens of, who do white people promote more? MLK or Malcolm X? Well, of course, they promote MLK more because he was more friendlier. He was nonviolent. He believed in a nonviolent approach, which a lot of us still do. But from what I take away from my learnings, nothing really gets done until you get a real good disruption. Now, you define that how you want to define it. Real disruption is the only thing that's going to make real change. If you're having protests and you're not really disrupting anything, you're not really affecting the lives of the people who need their lives affected to be able to purposely put changes in place, nothing's going to change. You have to make people feel uncomfortable. That is the entire point of a fucking protest. That's the entire point of it. So the people got to feel it. The people got to feel it. Not just the ones protesting. You see, Martin Luther King and all those folks, they did their best. They were marching non-violently, non-threatening, and yet they still were abused. They were still hit with water hoses. They were still beaten with batons. Had the dogs sicked on them. They were still perceived to be a threat, even though all they was doing was marching. Wasn't threatening, just marching. Marching with a cause. And yet it was still met with violence and resistance. So just think about it this way. If marching with a cause, non-violently, non-threateningly, nothing, if that led to violence, people reacting non-violently, marching non-violently, if that led to cases of them getting beat on historically, that's why we're sitting the fuck down now. That's why we're sitting down. We're not getting up about to be in the streets right now, especially with this dickhead as president. All he wants is an excuse to start martial law so he can try to bash our fucking heads in. That's all he wants. We ain't finna give it to him. We smarter than that. The police were already against us, no matter if you had a Republican or Democrat in office. They still are representations of the government. They are law enforcement. You are enforcing the laws of the government, and the government has never been friendly or fair to black folks, African Americans, however you want to describe or define us. It's never been fair to people with browner skin. How about that? Make sense? So what do you expect? But black people took a page this time around. You know what? We're not going to protest. Well, we are going to protest by not protesting. That's why everybody's trying to start economic boycotts now. So you got to hit them. You got to hit them in the pockets. You got to hit them where it counts. We can go out there, even if we were still doing it. You can go out there and march till your feet and legs hurt. But the only way they really gonna feel that pain, the only way they really gonna feel it is hitting them in their fucking pockets. You hit them where it hurts. That's what they care about more than anything. That's all they care about in America. America's God is money. That's what it is. Christians and everybody else will tell you otherwise, but even they take money in their churches. That's another topic for another day. But I'm about to play some videos for you. About to play some clips so you can kind of get a good perspective around the black community. And you know, not just the black community, because even some white folks have started to understand. And even they agree we probably shouldn't be out there for our safety, because safety is the most important thing here. You should be able to protest in this country without having to worry about getting your head bashed in if you're being nonviolent. As you can tell during the civil rights movement, they were nonviolent and they still got assaulted. What chance do you think we have under a racist president?
Why didn't black people show up to protest? So this was a question I received in my inbox, and I want to address it. And I'll give a little bit of a history lesson, but also I want to be careful in the way that I articulate it, because I don't want to be offensive, but I also need to be very blunt. Black people don't matter. Not to law enforcement, not to this administration. The police force was created. Its initial inception was done to chase down black people, enslaved black people who escaped. They wrote laws and legislation. They said black people had a mental illness that made them want to escape slavery. They classified it as a mental illness, something wrong with our brain.
I just had to cut in for a split second here, and I'm gonna go back to the video, but they called it a mental illness because we didn't want to be enslaved? Who's the one with the real mental illness here?
And even as recent as the Civil Rights March, we saw tons of action, peaceful, non-violent action that was still met with scores of police officers and dogs, and we were hosed down in the streets. We were beat with batons. Our bodies did not matter then, and they don't matter now. Not to this administration. They would love nothing more than for black people to get out in the street, protest, so that they can declare martial law. It's not safe for us to protest. Can you imagine thousands of black people on the streets? Can you imagine us saying, hands off, that we matter? Can you imagine what that would actually look like? What that would look like, what the video footage would show. I can guarantee you it will not show police officers blockading the street so that we can protest peacefully. It will not show police officers walking hand in hand with protesters. The headlines will read something like, rioters overtake the city. Looters are not welcome in our area. Even if there are no riots, no one is looting. The storyline is different when there are black bodies involved, because black lives don't matter. Not in the way that they should. It's not safe for us to be in the streets. It's not safe for us. It's not safe for our country. And honestly, 92% of black women, 80% of black men said absolutely not. And I don't know what it was. I don't know what clicked. We didn't have a meeting. There was no Zoom call. But on Wednesday, November the 6th, we all woke up and we decided to sit down. Because see, black people have been fighting. We have been fighting for hundreds of years. One of the kids' books, I'll do a review on it. One of the kids' books that me and my children have gone over, it is called Born on the Water. And it talks about chattel slavery and how the greatest form of resistance was to keep existing. That's what black people are doing. We are continuing to exist. And for us, at this point, that means sitting back so that we can continue
to exist.
This is a post for well-meaning white people. You may have noticed on this app that Black creators said they would not be at the April 5th protests. And I was out there and it was predominantly white people. And the protests were peaceful across the country. That's not because the protesters were more peaceful. It's because protests with Black people at the front lines are often met with serious violence. I was out the first night of the Black Lives Matter protests in Brooklyn. And I'd protested before, and I went by myself. And it was vast majority young Black people protesting. I've never been in war before, but this was the closest feeling I've ever experienced to that. It was like all of a sudden, everything switched. I was yelling at police officers and saying, this is my First Amendment right. I was hit with a baton.
You have a right to protest! On the sidewalk! We have a right to protest!
There was tear gas everywhere. They started kettling us, which means that they try and keep you in a singular small area outside, even if you're trying to get away and get out of it. The result is that it creates riot scenarios because it's frantic. I watched it happen. And then by the next week, white people were showing up for the Black Lives Matter protests. And they started being looked at as peaceful, and it was a totally different vibe. So please be respectful when Black people say, we are not showing up to this for our physical safety.
Hi, All Things New. You said, I get that. But who knows if that business is going to continue paying, you might get interrupted. So All Things New is commenting on another person that commented on my video where I raised questions asking folks who had attended the march, how it went. Did they feel safe? Was it a good experience? Was there police presence? And if so, were the police being, rough with them? Were there any agitators there? Could be the police presence being that. And for the most part, people have been pretty positive about it. They said they had a good experience. Police were there, but not causing any harm or being, an instigator or being rude or anything of that nature. I wanted to comment on this because the person that originally commented basically said they were home, minded their business. And the person that said that was a Black person. And so if you have been following any Black people on this app or any other social media app that have said they're not marching and there are reasons why, then you would understand why that person basically said what they said as it relates to them minding their business and being at home. The origins of marching and protesting in this country stem from Black and brown people, particularly Black people. And at this point in time, many Black people are tired of getting out there and being treated like crap, being sometimes beaten, pepper sprayed, hosed down, like you name it, it's happened and more. Okay, like that's like the light work. So yeah, she has the right to mind her business, and I think for you, if you did go out and protest, good for you, All Things New. But for you to come on here to basically say like, well, eventually your business could be interrupted. Honey, we're Black. Our business is always interrupted. But we figure out and make a way and find our joy regardless of what the system tries to interrupt with us. So I really need you to understand that this comment, it ain't it.
So apparently some white woman recently got on the internet and said that protests should be more kid-friendly. They should have bounce houses and face painting and clowns doing balloon animals and shit.
And my initial response was, why the fuck are you bringing your kids to a protest anyway? It's a protest, not a block party. But then my next thought was, you know what? Of course a white woman said that. This isn't surprising. And you know why it's not surprising? Because a lot of white people go to these protests just for the spectacle of it all. They just want to be seen doing it. They don't actually care about what the protests are for. They don't actually care about enacting any actual change. They just want some cool Instagram posts or some TikTok content, or they want to live stream it on YouTube so they can be seen doing it. They just want to look like an activist. They don't actually want to be one. So yeah, not shocked in the slightest.
And that last one, that last video, that last clip, he said a lot. And what I got from that was, you all are not taking this protest seriously. That's what I take from it. Asking about a fucking bounce house at a protest? Do you know why people would be there at the fucking protest to protest in the first place? Do you know why? Do you understand that? Because most people there are protesting because, hey man, something ain't right. There's an injustice or injustices playing out within society that need changing. The people in power need to change some things. And at these protests, you have no idea if you're going to make it back home. You could be put out of your misery or arrested if you're fortunate. This isn't for games or no joke. That's how you could tell. Like, y'all don't really have nothing at stake. It's not really on the line for you. Like, you're not angry enough yet. You don't see black people taking their kids to these protests because they understand the risk. They know what's going on. They know what they're fighting for. You don't see them. Y'all got to get it together, man. And I'm talking about white people. Y'all got to get it together. Seriously. You might mean well, but you got to do your homework on what you doing. Okay? You don't, a protest, it is about disruption. This ain't just no gathering or no fucking picnic or no shit like that. We here to actually fight for change out here. Man, and that's how you could tell. That's how you could tell with people who ain't never really been oppressed, who ain't never really faced nothing, who ain't never really felt nothing coming from the government. You might be feeling something now, but see, it ain't got you to the point where you really got to be out in them streets. Except for the racist white people. Say they fed up. They out the streets. Oh no, we got to turn this country back white. No, there's too many of y'all coming over here. That's why they trying to deport everybody that look brown. They out there because they really feeling it. They are definitely misguided at best at what they're doing. Misguided is just the nicest word I can say because, you know, I don't want to get my YouTube video flagged. But there's no common sense in racism. There's no benefits to it. And yet they're out the streets loud, proud, and dumb. Y'all have to understand. Y'all have to get that sense of tenacity, like your brethren. You got to get serious about what you're fighting for, like black people have done for centuries. We understand that when we go to protest, this might be the last thing that we do. But if we go down, at least we go down because we're trying to fight for something that matters. Fight for something that means something. Fight for something that our kids can look forward to. We are literally fighting for the next generations. You don't protest for play. But I'm going to do a second part to this video because it ran longer than what I expected. So there will definitely be a part 2 to this, because I got a few clips that I wasn't able to use today because of the time. But if you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I'm definitely going to be doing a part 2 real soon. I'll see you next time.